I went out for a run, a trail run or on the coast path where my kids live in North Devon. And it was like in the evening, there was no one around, and I just ran to the edge of a cliff, a place called Baggy Point. And I'd taken the kids there a few times. I just remember running right to the edge and just looking, and all these thoughts were flying into my head like, oh, if you jump here, everything goes away. Your pain goes. Like, you don't have to care what people think. You can just literally step off here. It might hurt for 10 seconds, but then you're free. Then you're off to whatever's beyond.
You'll never know unless you try. The limits way up in the sky. Don't let it all go passing by. You know you only get one life.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Bare Essentials Podcast, and let's welcome my guest, Scott Rogers. Scott, how you doing? Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Good, Charles. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to this, actually.
Same here, Scott. I always appreciate when guys like yourself are willing to spend some time here. I'm really grateful. And you mentioned it before we started, even if it resonates with one person, I think it'll resonate with more than one person. But
Yeah.
I love the approach, and these conversations matter. So thank you very much.
No, yeah. Thanks again. Yeah. Brilliant.
So, Scott, for those of you who may not know you, hopefully a lot of your friends and family will be watching, but for those outside of that circle, could you give a brief introduction?
Yeah. So my name's Scott Rogers. 41 years old, 42 next week, actually. I'm just about to finish 22 years as a Royal Marines Commando, the rank of sergeant. Divorced, which we'll get onto, I'm sure, later on. 2 kids. New partner, though, and a wonderful little dog. I'm based in Devon, and I'm currently negotiating a transition from military life to starting my own business with my partner and trying to help people and move forward with purpose.
Love it. You hit all the key components of what I hope to do with these podcast episodes. And I think we'll get to touch on a lot of what you just mentioned there. And I think for the folks watching and listening, it definitely will resonate. So let's start there. You talk about you bring 22 years of experience being in the Royal Marines and leadership. How would you say those experiences have shaped the way you approach life and leadership today, Scott?
I think initially, certainly 22 years ago, Royal Marine training was designed in a way to brainwash you to believe that you're better than anyone else. So you took a no-nonsense, direct, black and white approach to everything you did. It was built on discipline. It was built on routine. It was built on determination, aggression, controlled aggression, albeit. And I think as I've evolved as a person and as a leader, as a partner, as a father, I've kind of softened over the years. I think for me, and we'll probably touch on this, the best leaders I've had throughout my career are the ones that have been approachable, empathetic, actually take time to know you, to get to know you. So I think in terms of a leadership evolution for myself, I've gone from almost playing a game in my first 10 years of this is a certain way I've got to be this, I've got to be that persona, I've got to be this stone-faced killer. And actually, that doesn't really work with the majority of people. And then becoming a father 14 years ago softened me a little. The edges started to warp. So I think it's been an eye-opening journey. From 22 years has gone in a flash, but now I'm at a point where I just want to be approachable. I want people to come to me and not think, oh, he's a Royal Marine. He's going to be, is he approachable? Is he aggressive? Like, depending on what part of the society you speak to or society, everyone's got a different perception of the military, not just Royal Marines, but the military in general. So for me, it's been a bit of a journey finding out who I actually am, but not losing the fundamentals that we gain through Royal Marine basic training. And it's just kind of finding my own way, really. Yeah, follow the examples, but don't necessarily be pigeonholed into what you think you should be. And I think a lot of people go wrong with that. They play a game, they play this act where actually that's not really you. So yeah, it's an evolution, really. It sounds cliche, but it's taken me 22 years to discover who I am, and I'm still finding it out every day. So yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm a little older than you. I'm 53. Obviously, I still don't have it figured out. I feel like I'm learning. I feel like I'm learning every day, and I think selfishly, these conversations help, which is really good. Scott, you said a word there though I want to touch on because I think it's being a Royal Marine. I think the word choice soft. Um, I think a lot of, especially men, I think they have trouble with that.
Yeah,
Can you
definitely.
get it? Can you get into that a little bit? Because again, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to see that sometimes you have to soften up, but you have to do it in a way without losing your edge. How do
Yeah.
you manage that?
So I think the word soft, when you use it in terms of military personnel, can equate to weakness. So if you appear soft and malleable, there's a perception that you're weak. And certainly around mental health within the military, it's changed a lot over the years, but there was always this stigma that if you had a welfare issue, if you had anything that bothered you, you were considered soft, you were considered weak. It was in the Marines, it was called a welfare case, which kind of taught guys to internalize everything and deal with it internally, which then is a recipe for disaster because then it just explodes outwards and it's not good for anyone. So I think for me, I think it's an ego thing. Like you can be soft and still an alpha male. You can be soft and a UFC fighter. You can be soft and special forces operative. You can be soft and empathetic and compassionate. But how you retain your edge, I think there was a quote I heard. It was something like, it was a Matthew McConaughey one, I think, where he talks about there's a difference between being a good man and a nice man. I think have you heard that? So
Yep.
a good man is still capable of destruction, of turning it on when he needs to. A nice man doesn't know how to do that. They're just seen as nice. So I think finding the balance, and I don't get it right. Sometimes I'm too soft, and for my own ego, I think my family and that think that the softness is quite a good thing, especially my kids and my partner, because I can come across as direct, but I think they know within me I'm like a candy over here, like a toffee, hard on the outside but really soft in the middle. Um, and I think it goes to that point I was saying about putting an act on. Like 22 years in a career is a long time, especially when you feel you have to be a certain way in a group of 30 to 60 other alpha males. Like I call it peacocking. Like you're all on this like um hierarchy trying to figure out who's the alpha, who's this, who's that, or do you know what I mean? Whereas
Mhm.
actually I think being a good man, so soft and emotional and caring, but knowing that at a flick of a switch you can turn that off and you can go the other way. That's kind of how I like to be. And I don't turn the switch often, but over my time I have done. I have turned, sorry, that's my dog. She's another reason why I'm so soft. Um uh and I'm sure you've had guests on here who would say the same thing. Like you see a lot of boxers or fighters out in the street and you wouldn't know they're a fighter. They don't act like it. Whereas you'd get some, I don't know, insecure bloke who spouts off at any opportunity, who would just crumble if actually they had to do something. Um, so I think soft used to be considered a bad thing, but actually I think it, certainly in this day and age, you need an element of softness, a gentle touch. So the Royal Marines, someone once described to me, what's the difference between a Royal Marine and a para? So And the best analogy I heard was, um, a Royal Marine is like an iron gauntlet in a velvet glove. So
Mhm.
we've got that soft, nice, understanding touch, but once that glove comes off, if we have to use it, we will. Whereas the paras are straight 0 to 100. We're going in, we're doing this. Um, and maybe some people will say that's a bit unfair, but I think a lot of people might agree with that. Um, yeah, so that's
Mm.
the way I'd put it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting, Scott, because I just had a conversation last week with a former, US Navy SEAL, and he framed it in this context. He said he's over his lifetime, he's had to get really good at breaking, killing, and shooting so that now he can choose peace.
Yeah,
And I thought that was a pretty good way to frame it. And no, I think you're right. And I think as I get older, I think that softness allows an element of finesse, and it doesn't always have to be about physicality, right? I think to your
yeah,
point, it could be directness in the way you speak to people, the way you just associate with other people. And I think as we want to become leaders and grow in leadership, I think that has to be part of it. That's the next point I want to get into a little bit with you is when it comes to leadership, uh, what has been, your life up to date, being in
yeah.
the Royal Marines, what is it about being in that environment? Has it taught you about yourself that now allows you to teach other people?
I think there's lots of lessons really. I'm quite an emotional, reactive person. Um, I'm quite impulsive. So the Marines over the course of like various promotion courses, they talk about the condor moment. So when you get into a contact or a firefight's initiated, as the section commander or the leader, they really emphasize the initial response and then pull back and assess the situation. And I think I'm guilty of even now of not doing that in my personal life. Like there's times where I can feel the emotion come out straight away. I can feel the response, and then I'm like, "Oh shit, it's come out," but I need to rein it back in again here. Um, so I think in terms of leadership, and being in the environment, it's knowing the people around you, what they're capable of. And I suppose that kind of allows us to have that condor moment because we know how well trained our section or our troop or our company is. It allows us that time to pull back and actually trust that they've got our back while we're assessing the situation, whether that's in the office, in a meeting. Like I can leave my office now, know my lads have got it. I'll go back and it's not on fire. I'll go back and everything's running smoothly. And it's I think trust is a big thing as well. You've got to trust the people around you, and that's one thing I think the Royal Marines is really good at. We train people to such a level that they're almost autonomous. You can trust them to obviously there's a pinch of salt. Not everyone is like that. There are some people who you can't trust. However, I would say 99% of Royal Marines you can trust to get on with a task, which allows you then to go on to other things, other issues, other elements of battlefield or the work or whatever, because you know they've got your back. So I think for me, learning to trust, learning to take that moment, and learning to let go of responsibility and hand it out. Like there's a lot I've come across a lot of leaders in my time who micromanage, who want to get into the weeds of everything, and whether that's through a fear of them looking bad or their perception, someone perception perceiving them as failures, they like to hold on to everything. Whereas for me, I kind of we call it give the rope and you'll hang yourself. So I'll give my team, my lads responsibility. I'll trust them to run things and knowing that it won't mess up. And if it does, it's a learning point. Old Scotty probably would have flashed and gone, and a lot of the old school Marines would have done the same. But I think now it's there's so much focus on lessons identified, um, let's learn from our mistakes rather than punish that. And there used to be a fear, I think, for a majority of Marines a long time ago, that if you messed up, you were catching it up big time. Either it was a thrashing, or back in the day it was a good swift right hook or whatever. And that kind of then instills fear in that, oh shit, I can't mess up here. Whereas I think now we've moved more with that softly approach. Look, lads, it's fine if you mess up. You just got to be honest, because that keeps the trust here, and then we can fight it head on. So once that trust is gone, I think I think you're on a slippery slope then. So that's why I try not to lead with not anger's the wrong word. With basically just keeping it all to myself. I like to dish out responsibility, because not only does that help me out, it helps my lads out. It subordinate development, we call it, even though they're not really subordinate. It's a bit of a derogatory term, but it helps them to lead. It helps them to step up. It helps them to know, oh, Scotty's not here, Sergeant Roger's not here, but I can step into his role. So when I get promoted, I already know what I'm doing, really. And I kind of like that nice swing between responsibility. I can go down to my lads, they know that, but then some of them can stand up into my shoes. And I think that's quite a good balance to have.
Mm. So you said the word fear there. As a leader, though, I think, how would you explain this, or how would you address other leaders when it comes to this? Sometimes I think as leaders develop, there's a fear that they may have their, you said the word subordinates, or the
Yeah,
people under
yeah,
them, that they may end up surpassing you.
yeah.
How do you talk to people about that fear? Because I think that's
Well,
really prevalent and real.
well, I'm actually kind of in that situation. So just to go back, 10 years ago is when I become a sergeant, when I did my senior command course. Um, Within 3 years, I was promoted to colour sergeant, and I was put on a degree course to get that rank, paid for by the military. And then I left my ex-wife. So I then was going through pretty nasty divorce. The kids were affected, finances were affected, my ability to concentrate on my course kind of was affected. So I made a decision that I was going to turn down promotion, pull myself off the course, and stay as a sergeant until everything had got into balance again. Fast forward 10 years to now, lance corporals who were my lance corporals when I was a sergeant are either a sergeant or a colour sergeant. And all my peers are now warrant officers or WO1. So for me, it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, because I used to get asked still by those people in the higher positions, oh, Scotty, how do we do this? What's this? Can you advise me on this? And I think the like spoilt brat in me was like, listen, mate, you get paid now. You make this decision. Like, you go and find out. I'm not spoon feeding you. But as the years progressed, and as people's journeys become their own, like, I kind of flipped that into fair play. Listen, you've done really well. You've promoted. I caused this myself. No one did this to me. I made a decision that had to impact my life at that point. It's the right decision, because I'm in a really good place mentally. I was in a bad place for like 3 or 4 years. And now I wish them all the success. All the lads that have surpassed me, I'm like, I still chat to them. One of them's here with me now. He's the same rank as me, and we chat. And this is what I mean by being a good leader. I think if you have that trust, and you have that team cohesion where you can step in and out of each other's shoes, both up and down, I don't think that becomes an issue. However, if you're an egotistical leader and you thrive on power, which I've come across a lot, and then suddenly you overtake them, that's a them issue. That's an insecurity. That's I'm this really alpha male. Why is he? Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where it's just that softly approach. And I think I will never, ever begrudge someone else's success, because I think that's just a toxic way to live your life. There's always going to be someone better than you, smarter than you, funnier than you, stronger than you, on more money than you. And that's just the cards you dealt with. You've just got to play the hand. So it takes a long time. It comes with age, that acceptance.
Yeah. Well, listen, every episode I do, I have to accept that. I got guys that are better looking, funnier. It's every time I do one of these, I accept it every time, man. So I get no, I get that, man. I really do. I did want to touch on it because you've mentioned it twice now, and you've said it there a little bit about being in a dark place.
Yeah,
And, it's something I don't really talk about a lot on here, but since this is something you've experienced, and I'm sure there's men, especially who've been through it, when you say about that dark place and
yeah,
your divorce,
yeah.
could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and this is I get quite passionate when I talk about this because a lot of people in the military, when they talk about mental health, the initial thought is, oh, he's got PTSD, he's been blown up, he's had a bad time at war, and all of that. Whereas for me, I only did one tour of Afghanistan. I won't sit here and tell you I'm this all singing, all dancing operator. But for me, what I knew when I joined the military, I knew there was a chance I'd go to war. I knew there was a chance I'd have to do certain things or experience certain things or witness certain things. So I think I processed that in my head just by evolution of my journey. What I didn't expect and what actually knocked me down was my divorce. No one gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. No one has kids thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a full-time dad, but then I'm going to go and be a part-time dad, and then I'm only going to see him every now and then. So for me, going from my identity was a family man in the military. It wasn't a military man with a family. Um, I had two beautiful boys, or I've still got two beautiful boys, but I had two beautiful boys. I had a wife who I trusted 100%. Is an amazing mum. The trouble was we didn't make each other happy. Like we weren't even friends towards the end. I couldn't even tell you what her favourite meal was, her favourite colour, which is really sad. But when you think about it, we got together at the age of 20. And then when I left, I was 35. So you had 15 years of development of you become completely different people. And if you don't kind of hold each other's hand through that journey, you just get separated. And so I made the decision to leave. It took 4 years for us to make, well, for me to make that decision. The last 4 years of my marriage was it was very rocky. I was based in Scotland for 2 years, which was where I first met Ross Wilson. And I was getting home every 2 weeks. She became a single mum, essentially. And then you had these two orbiting planets. So you had me over here, you had this other one here with my wife and kids. And then I was coming home trying to fit into her orbit, and it never worked. And we just kept clashing. And I think the final straw for me was when it started to impact the kids, because I grew up in a broken home with arguing and all sorts. And although I swore to myself when I got married and had kids, I'd never leave because my dad left. I'd never do that. It came to a point where I was like, the only option is to leave because it's affecting the kids anyway. So I left. I made some questionable decisions in the aftermath of the divorce. Like I moved on too quickly. Like dating apps weren't a thing when I got married or when I was single. So I was like a kid in a sweet shop. When I come out, I was like, look, this is nuts. I was insensitive at times to my ex-wife. I didn't really think about her feelings, which is why the divorce got really nasty really quickly. We both became horrible people, although I don't think she'd ever admit to her part in it. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, I was in a dark place. The debt was spiraling through solicitors' fees. Me just being I was like a 20-year-old in a 35-year-old body. I was like, I'm going to go on holiday. I'm going to go and do this. Oh, my solicitor wants £2,000 a month. And I'm like, oh, and then COVID hit. And I found myself no identity, missing my kids, debt spiraling out of control. And I got to a point where I just turned the lights on, shut the curtains, and I wouldn't move. I even stopped showering, and they're like key indicators in the mental health, like triage process. and I was ticking all the boxes. I was not going to work. I was just not turning up because I was like, well, I'm a sergeant. I kind of do my own thing at this point. Yeah, I have got to report to people, but I can get away with having a bit of a meltdown at the moment. But it ended up catching me out and biting me in the ass. And I had my first 16 years of my career, my reputation in terms of how good I was at my trade. So I was an electrical engineer by trade as well. I was once described as the rising star in my specialisation, promoted quite quickly. And then I went from that to having this really bad reputation of, oh, he just does his own thing. He's not interested. He's lazy. It got to such a bad point where I was just like, I went out for a run, and I remember this, and it kind of gets me every now and then, but I can talk about it. I went out for a run, a trail run, or on the coast path where my kids live in North Devon. And it was like in the evening, there was no one around, and I just ran to the edge of a cliff, a place called Baggy Point. And I'd taken the kids there a few times. I just remember running right to the edge and just looking, and all these thoughts were flying into my head like, oh, if you jump here, everything goes away. Your pain goes. Like, you don't have to care what people think. You can just literally step off here. It might hurt for 10 seconds, but then you're free. Then you're off to whatever's beyond. And I started to think about my family. I was like, well, my friends, my close friends, in 22 years, they've come down once to see me. You know, it's always been me making the effort to go back and see people. I was like, well, they're not bothered. They don't care. My family, I was like, well, they won't really miss me. I've been in the Marines 22 years. I'm kind of like a nothing. I'm not part of their daily life. The only thing that was kind of stopping me was the kids. And I was like, how could I do that and leave it to someone else to explain to the boys what their dad had done? And I didn't want to put them through that, but I was at the point where I was literally about to make a split-second decision here. We could have gone either way, and then out of nowhere, this old guy come along with a dog, and he just tapped me and he went, "Mate, are you all right?" And I literally, it was like reality had come back. Everything had gone, all the issues, all the problems had gone, and I was like, and I just burst out crying with this bloke I'd never met before in my life, and I just remember him like holding me, and he went, "Right, come on." And we just walked down with his dog, and I didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He was just like, it was almost like a guardian angel. And not many people know that story because it does get to me, just because of how selfish that would have been to the kids. But it was from that point, and that still didn't like fix me, but it got me on the right track. It got me looking for help. It got me being okay with asking for help as a supposed alpha male, whatever. But you talk about leadership. I had a couple of leaders at the time, and I won't name and shame because I think they know who they are. But I remember one phrase was, "Look, Scotty, everyone's got problems, mate." And I was like, "Oh, I'm cured. That's all I needed to hear. Thanks very much." You know, and there was still a toxic like element there. And whether that was out of resentment because I was just admin for him or whatever, and that will always stay with me. And and he's in quite a high position now, and I'll always have that in the back of my head going, you were fucking useless, to be honest. So I try and be better than that. I try and put myself, because I've been there, I try and put myself in people's shoes now. So anyway, it took me a couple of years. I tried talking therapy, didn't get on with it. I tried is it cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, where you had to write homework, and I was like, I don't want to write anything down. I don't want to journal. I don't do that. To me, that was effort. I didn't want to sit and talk to someone and then go spend an hour writing stuff down. So I kind of like got back into the gym, which is a savior for a lot of people, not only men but women. I kind of built the routine. That book, Make Your Bed by that ex-Navy SEAL, little things then build into bigger things, and then you suddenly find yourself, I'm almost back here. But the thing that did it for me was there's a program over here called the Warrior Program, and I actually went on that in October last year. And it's a week-long immersive therapy. It's a dry week. You share a static caravan with 2 other people you've never met before. I had an ex-SES guy in with me, and we were kind of like going, "Oh, this is going to be some woo-woo hippie stuff." This, but I was kind of like, "Look, nothing else worked for me. I've got to go into this 110%. I want a better life. I don't want to be in a stagnant position." So I went on this thing, and there's a couple of techniques. One was called timeline-based therapy. So essentially, it's kind of like a meditative process where they get you into a state and you kind of envisage looking down on your life from pre-birth to like pre-being in the womb to like if you ever had a past life, and it kind of gets your mind thinking, oh, okay. And then you think about the one thing that's really holding you back, and then they talk you through it, and they go, right, at what point was this? Was this future, present, past, or beyond that? And then you kind of visualize this stuff, and it kind of teaches you to let go of things that subconsciously you don't even realize you're holding on to. Like I knew I had daddy issues, if we call it that. Fear of abandonment, insecurity, needing validation. Like in the first 2 years after leaving my ex-wife, I got engaged twice, and I had to go through therapy to understand why that was, and it was to try and keep people from leaving me. It was trying to hold on, to go, oh, she's got a ring on now, she ain't going anywhere. We're actually, and it was quite me and my partner laugh about it now. She was like, I can't believe you did. And I was like, I know, I've wasted money on rings here. I'm never getting that back. Do you know what I mean? I could have shares in a jewelry shop. But it was weird. It was like an epiphany. It was like I needed that week. And as soon as I did that, I left a toxic relationship that year as well. I just felt like me. I felt like I'd gone back 20 years ago to the cocky, gobby young Marine who had his zest for life and had this like unstoppable presence and belief in himself. And then it was at that point where I was like, right, I'm going to get a dog, because my ex-wife and my kids have got my old dog. So I'm going to get a dog. I got a dog, and she's here now. She's asleep, thankfully. But she pulled me she got me up. She got me doing stuff, and they take your attention away, and animals are so good for that. And then out of nowhere, I met my current partner, and I said to you, I mentioned it briefly, that I've had friends and family who've never come to visit me in 22 years. I'm only 3 hours down the road, but they'll fly to Dubai, or they'll fly to Norway, or they'll fly to Canada to see other friends, but they won't drive to Devon. And Jade, my partner, and who helped me found Summit in Soul, we just clicked instantly. She made an effort. She was into the same stuff. She's a personal trainer. We love the mountains. We love hiking. And she actually, without realizing it, gave me this impetus to not go down the corporate route. Oh, I don't want to be a project manager. Don't do cybersecurity. Your passion lies elsewhere. And I've always loved the mountains, but I kind of was afraid of them for a few years. When I passed out of training in 2005, the lad I shared a room with, when I'm mountain training, actually fell to his death off a mountain in Scotland. I wasn't there, but I had the phone call at the train station, and I was like, so every time I got on a mountain at work or whatever, I had this fear in the back of my head thinking, this is going to be me. And then when I was in Scotland, I started to go out on my own. I started to go out with an old sergeant major who was there at weekends with me. And we just went Munro bagging in the Scottish Munros in the Highlands. And I started to fall in love with it again. And what I liked about it was the vulnerability you get when when you go somewhere and you realize how insignificant you are. And if something was to happen, no one would find you for days. And it was quite liberating and like fearful at the same time. So I was like, right, I've actually got to be on it here. And then I kind of like was like, well, that distraction's really good. That distraction stops me thinking for 8 hours about anything other than, that's the top. How am I getting there? What have I got to avoid? And then when I found out Jade loved hiking, and we did a couple of group hikes, and she can't map read for shit though. So she kind of goes, this like trend now where girls will go on their phone and they're hiking and finding themselves. Well, that phone signal dies. And I had conversations with her going, look, you need to learn to map read and do all this stuff. And then her response was, well, I've got you now, so I don't need to still. So that it kind of Summit and Soul started from that, really. It was, what can I do to help people without them realizing that I'm helping them?
Mm-hmm.
So I did the 3 Peaks, which was a charity. It was a challenge in the UK. You do the 3 highest peaks in 24 hours. And I did it for this SBS association, so Special Boat Service. And we had some like pretty decent operators on that, some old school alpha males who've done some really serious shit. And one of them was a mountain leader when he was in. And I said to him, I was like, mate, you're more qualified than I am. You've got more experience than I am. I feel like embarrassed that I'm leading you. And he went, mate, what you give me is I don't need to think. I just need to follow you. If anything goes wrong, it's on you. And I was like, well, now you put it that way, I'm shitting myself a little bit. But do you know what I mean? And then it started to sink in that we've got so many options in life. Every day we wake up, we've got options, we've got options, we've got options, and options equal stress. And I just thought, if you just go somewhere, take me back to being that new Marine, fresh out of training. Someone goes, right, you got to be here 9 o'clock with that, and we're going there. That's it. Just follow. And I was like, you know what? There's so much freedom in that. So I kind of had this idea with Jade where let's just start taking people out in the mountains. They don't need to worry about getting lost. They don't need to worry about planning a route. They don't need to worry about, oh, what if this goes wrong? Because that's all on me. And I'm content with that because I trust in the training that I've done and the qualifications. And Jade, she's been through her own stuff. She was a single mum at 17. She's brought up a 22-year-old boy. He's a really nice lad and we get on really well. And she's been through her stuff and she's like successful and just an amazing person. And we kind of had a discussion about why we want to do this. And we don't want perfect people. We don't want rich people. They've got nothing to add to us personally. What we liked is that old cliche of there's a broken vase, you pick it up, you glue it back together. Yes, it can hold water. Yes, it can hold flowers, but you can see the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
So we like perfectly imperfect people. And you often find when they've got an outlet where they're allowed to just be free, but with a safety net, they're actually some of the most incredible, helpful, positive people out there. They just need this like helping hand. And I think nature and certainly the mountains in the UK with the weather, it can turn like that. Nature teaches you, it strips you back literally to nothing. You can't rely on your phone because the phone signal is non-existent. Mountain rescue will take several hours to get to you. So it kind of puts you in that vulnerability state where your only option is to either go up or down. And like I said, your options give you stress if you've got too many. So, I'm going up. I'm going with Scott. He's a Royal Marine. Jade's a personal trainer. They do this all the time. Let's just go. Yes, it is hard. And I have had this conversation with people of, oh, Scott, my legs hurt. I'm like, well, they will because you're going uphill. You're going up a mountain. And I've done a couple of like rewarding things this year. I took some 12-year-old kids out in the Lake District for a week. Now, I know some adults that wouldn't have been able to do what we did with them. They were incredible kids. We were doing 7, 8, 9, 10-mile days up these high mountains in the Lake District. And I had, in one of my groups, I had 4 or 5 girls and they were just so resilient. And so it actually gave me faith in the future, the future generations, because I think we've lost that a little bit. And then I went to Peru for 3 weeks and I went with another secondary school and I kind of did like a blog series about my experiences out there. Now, the people that I had issues with were the teachers. It wasn't the kids. The kids were incredible. I learned so much from the kids. But the teachers actually taught me as well, I'm not as patient as I think I am. It's certainly with adults who can't adult for me, so that was a massive learning curve. And I said to Jade, like, I need to soften. We've discussed, I need to soften. I need to become more malleable, but I still need to keep an element of directness because safety is on the line ultimately. So yeah, I mean I've taught for a long time, but for
It's
me, it was the realization that real life broke me. Military life didn't break me. And I think there's a lot of blokes out there who are going through a divorce, who've gone through divorce, and the system is so biased and outdated towards men. It is unreal. Like, I've lost some of my pension, I lost the house, and I had to reframe that in terms of, you didn't lose the house, your kids got the house, and that took a while as well. I have lost my pension. It's gone to my ex-wife, and it will just sit in a pot till she retires, which is another issue. But all this stuff, people go through it, and in fact, I had a carpenter in my room today, and he was fixing a door, and we just got chatting, and he got onto divorce. He went, "Oh, I'm divorced. This has happened. This has happened. This has happened." And you can tell it's like a monkey on your back.
mm,
And there's so many people out there, and I think I try and advise people now. Like, I made some mistakes from my divorce. If I could go back, there's things I wouldn't have done, 100%. But I cleansed my soul. I cried on the doorstep to my ex-wife, and I apologized for my shit, my action. I took um, accountability for my shortcomings. Right, I didn't cheat on her, any of this, but I wasn't a nice person, and I think she wasn't either. She really actually dialed down and looked into it, and I was okay that she didn't acknowledge her part. I was kind of like, you know what? I'm just being me now. Am I going to mess up? Probably. There's no rule book for life. We just go by what we're taught from our parents or teachers or whatever. So my kids are getting to that age now where I'm trying to influence them as a friend, not a parent, if that makes sense. I don't want to be you will do this, you will do that. I'm like, well, look, boys, do you think it's a good idea that you have a shower? Because when you start getting into girls and you smell like that, they're not coming near you, you know. And it's trying that softly approach. But yeah, I think the mountains helped me certainly with a lot of self-reflection. And the only thing I'm concerned about with Summit and Soul is that if I'm not careful, I will lose that for me. It will become work, and I'll be like, oh God, we've got 20 people here,
mm.
you know, and then I'll have to put a mask on. Whereas I want it to be authentic. I want people to, and I think that's where Jade comes in. She keeps me authentic. Yeah. So
Listen, I appreciate you, and I know you said you talked a lot. I'm really glad you did because I I love sometimes with the show and somebody like yourself just starts letting it out, hang out there. I think that's really, really valuable. And I think when you watch this back, I think you'll realize, I'll say this too. I think a lot of what you said is going to do a lot of good for a lot
yeah,
of people, just
hopefully.
opening up the way you did. Um, I did want to end with this though. The summit and soul, how how can people get a hold of you? How can they start to embark on this?
So it's very much in its infancy, and I'll be honest, mate. I've got no business acumen. I don't know how to market. I don't know how to sell. ChatGPT is like my business mentor at the minute. You know, Jade's been self-employed, so she's got a bit of an idea. So where are we at with it? We've got an Instagram page. We've got a Facebook page. We're building a website, or I say we're building a website. GoDaddy's got a website for us that I'm just trying to figure stuff out. But yeah, I mean, find us on the Instagram page. We're looking at setting up our first. So the premise behind it is we'll do guided hikes in the UK to loads of different mountain ranges. I don't just want to do Snowdon, Ben Nevis, or Scafell Pike. They're the main ones that everyone does. I want people to experience isolation, beauty and isolation, going places where they wouldn't go without someone showing them. then we do like weekend retreats where people come, they get in the mountains, we put food on for them. Jade does like a Pilates or some breath work or things like that. We're just evolving it into the wellness piece as well. And then next year, we're looking to run our first European week-long retreat in the Mediterranean. We're looking at, and we've just come back from a recce trip. So we found a mountain route, we found a villa, and we're just trying to put that together. And I think it's not about the money. I won't be rich from this. I know I won't, and I'm okay with that. I'll probably earn less than I'm on now in the military, but it's the freedom that comes with it. I love to travel. I love to experience different places, different people. Like, I'd love to get an international community because, yeah, I love British people, but I think you grow so much from meeting other cultures. So I've just come back from 2 weeks in India, incredible place. 3 weeks in Peru, Spain, Crete, and I've just learned so much about myself and about humanity and actually what it means to not have anything. Like, we think we're in this like living crisis. We're not in a living crisis. Go to India, that's a living crisis. When I was out there, they had really bad landslides. Half their roads are gone. Half businesses are washed in the river, and they're just cracking on with it. They're just building piece by piece. So yeah, Summit and Soul, it's a new venture. I'm trying to build it because I've got 6 months officially till I'm officially out the Marine. So I'm trying to use that as a buffer to get it started. So just see where it goes. I'll put some more stuff on LinkedIn, no doubt. Ask for advice, tips and stuff. But yeah, it's a scary leap because I've come from routine. I've come from a guaranteed wage, guaranteed accommodation to shit. I feel like an 18-year-old leaving college with 2 kids in tow this time. And I'm like, what do I do here?
Well, I guess, maybe wait a little bit until you get engaged again. That's my advice. No
I'm
offense,
hoping
no
I'll get a
offense to
free ring.
no offense to Jade, sorry, but maybe just hold off on that a little bit. So she might start to wonder where this is going. You know what I mean?
She's desperate to tie me down. She is. I'm telling her no. This is not happening. Yeah,
Well,
no.
listen, it's been awesome having you on, Scott. I really, really appreciate it, and I really hope that this goes extremely well for you guys because I think I think we do need to have people getting out more in touch with nature.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's really good for everyone. And like I said, I think you said a lot of really valuable things. I can't wait to kind of break all this up a little bit and put it out on some clips and things like that. But I think you will actually be providing a lot of good, positive influence to a lot of people. So thanks for that.
Well, I hope so. And all my stuff's unfiltered. Like, I don't have much of a filter. Like, and I'm quite. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So if people reach out to me and they want just to talk or to find out, I'm more than happy to try and help anyone. Yeah, and I really appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I'm a nobody. I'm just me. But if I can help someone turn stuff around, then that'd be worth it.
Yeah, listen, my advice to you is this, man. Don't ever think of it like that. Think of that we all have something to offer somebody, man. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It really doesn't matter if it's you saying it or if it's McConaughey saying it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be something that somebody processes. So I think it's good on you. And listen, this isn't the easiest thing to do, to jump on here and do the podcast. You know what I mean? It's not that easy. So I give you credit for that, for jumping on here and, pardon the pun, but bearing your soul here for people. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for having me, Charles, and good luck with the rest of it. And yeah, I'll definitely catch up with more of your podcasts because they're brilliant.
No, I appreciate it. Listen, I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Essentials. Take care. Keep supporting. Bye.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.